we get the great blessing and pleasure and privilege of sharing in the blessing of a child, a dedication, a moment of dedication this morning of Evan Thomas Shellman, and that is a great, great, great privilege, one of the great privileges the church gets to participate in, and this sermon hopefully will help us to celebrate this event more fully. From the epistle of 2 Timothy, chapter 4, verse 6 through 18. As for me, I am already being poured out as a libation, and the time of my departure has come. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. From now on, there is reserved for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing. Do your best to come to me soon, for Demas, in love with the present world, has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica. Crescens has gone to Galatia, Titus to Dalmatia. Only Luke is with me. Get Mark and bring him with you, for he is useful in my ministry. I have Tychicus and to Ephesus. When you come, bring the cloak that I left with Carpus at Troas, also the books, and above all, the parchments. Alexander the coppersmith did me great harm. The Lord will pay him back for his deeds. You also must beware of him, for he strongly opposed our message. At my first defense, no one came to my support, but all deserted me. May it not be counted against them. But the Lord stood by me and gave me strength, so that through me the message might be fully proclaimed and all the Gentiles might hear of it. So I was rescued from the lion's mouth. And the Lord will rescue me from every evil attack and save me for his heavenly kingdom. To him be the glory forever and ever. Amen. Here we are at the beginning of a child's life, not old enough yet to know what is about to occur, being brought forward, not by his own power, but by the power of those called to care for him, those dedicated to him. And here we have a scripture that is written by one at the end of his life. The time of his departure has come. He has seen it. He hopes for a heavenly reward, not a long life. He is being poured out, he says, as a libation. That is an offering to God from the world. What can we learn about what makes life valuable, about what makes it worthwhile here at the beginning by looking at one near the end? Is there something we can offer Evan and all the little ones with us today, and maybe even ourselves? It's not too late even for us to help create the certain knowledge that at the end, whenever we can look back, we can say, I lived it well. And like Paul, we can look forward and expect a heavenly reward. Now, there are probably some signs that you are wasting your days, that you will look back and say, I should have done it better. Are you spending too much time in front of the television? Now, I like television and I like movies, but there is a balance. Are you spending too much time on your phone? That god-awful, God-blessed gift of a phone. And on social media, are you spending too much time chasing after profit and forsaking those simple pleasures of family birthdays, of nieces' baseball games, of conversations with your dad? Are you spending too much time chasing after lust? Or maybe too much time chasing after leisure? Or maybe not enough time on leisure? Maybe not enough time learning? Do you know my grandmother, God bless her, is 97, I think, and she is teaching herself Spanish. She has taught herself how to quilt, or rather how to knit, so she can knit scarves to be given away. There might be a lesson there. The question is, what is the most important thing to you? What is the most important thing to us? And what is the place for that in our lives? We would all say our families are perhaps the most important, or our friends are the most important. But do we actually dedicate enough of ourselves to those relationships to actually prove it? There's been enough movies and books and fables that have been told for us to believe that this isn't in fact an important question, that we are actually not very good at dedicating ourselves to the things that are most important. When people look back, they say they regret certain things. And we all tend to say about the same thing. We spent too much time on our career, and we missed out on too many family occasions. We didn't spend enough time sharing our true feelings. We regret having lost contact with old friends and not traveling enough. But the biggest regret seems to be something that would fall in the category of not being ourselves. We don't feel like we were ourselves. By this, people regret having conformed to society and to pressures that have kept their real selves bottled up. Sometimes they talk about it as if they have forgotten the joys of life, those things that they dreamed of as a child that they let slip away because they felt other things were more important. Remember the movie Big with Tom Hanks? When was that? In the 90s? Big? Eons ago. Big shared a fairy tale story of a tween, an adolescent, a boy my boy's age, who one magical day found himself fully grown up, an adult. At first, he is an adult with a kid's heart. He is a kid with an adult's body, and he does crazy and silly things that draw crowds and make him seem novel and exciting, and he's offered opportunities, and then he's tempted by success, wealth, and status. And he begins to lose himself. The inner child that he truly really is, he begins to forget. The movie, of course, is maybe a metaphor for all of us. And what happens to us, we forget who we truly are, our true inner self. Now, to be honest, I am not certain about this regret that we are not always our true selves. Because not all of our true selves are that impressive. We are always at least partly selfish, partly self-centered. And we are sometimes in tension. What we want and what we should do, how we choose priorities. It's not an easy thing. For instance, my father and sister drove 16 hours to a place called Iowa for a wedding for my cousin. Now, they didn't really want to drive 16 hours, but they really wanted to go to the wedding. What's their true self? How do you navigate that tension? The tension between not wanting to be exhausted and to spend the resources, time, and money, but wanting to really reconnect with family and knowing that it's worth it and that it's important. It seems to me regretting not being yourself begs a lot of questions. Is yourself and your desires, are they good? Is what you want to truly be worthy? People who are sometimes their true selves, let's just get it out there, to be honest, aren't always very pleasant people to be around. There's an awful lot to be said about faking it and being civil. Maybe this is what bothers many of us about Paul. Because I think Paul is himself, excuse the language, he doesn't give a damn what you think of him. You don't like him? Too bad. You don't like what he has to say? Get over it. You don't like his mission? What's wrong with you? And though I am not so sure I would want to spend a lot of quality time with Paul, I do think we might have something to learn from him, though, because Paul wasn't technically just being himself. He wasn't just living his life on his terms and only his terms. In fact, he might not even be selfish and self-centered. In his words, Paul is being poured out as a libation. A libation is a liquid offering to God. It's a drink. It's like pouring a little wine or a little champagne. It's pouring something out as a symbol, a metaphorical action for yourself and your life being given away, the blessing of it, the overabundance of it being given to God. Paul sees that his life is an offering to God. And if it is, then he is perhaps the opposite of selfish and the opposite of self-centered. He is, in fact, not living his life for himself at all, but rather he is living and has lived a life completely dedicated to God. We aren't dedicating Evan today to just any life he chooses or we might choose for him. And we aren't rededicating our life in worship to just any life we choose, but a particular life with a particular emphasis and a particular goal, God. We judge our lives then in relationship to how they have been given to God. That is our standard and our measure, our canon. Have I today given my life to God? Has it been poured out as a libation, an offering to my Creator, my source, my God? When I wake up, did I wake up in a way as to make it an offering? When I cook breakfast, did I cook breakfast in a way as to be an offering? When I greeted my family, did I greet my family in a way that I am an offering? When I plan for the day and seize the opportunities of the day and face the challenges of the day, did I see them all as opportunities to offer myself to God? Did I stand up for important things, speak necessary things, keep silent about silly things as a way of asking, how am I an offering to God? This is important, though. This offering ourselves to God is not a one-way street. We are not being asked to give all to a God that gives nothing, are we? But to give all in return to that which first has been given us, namely Jesus, God's Son. This is the reality that Paul encountered when he met Jesus, the risen Christ, and this belief grew in him, such that here at the end he can say that God has never left him. When all others have turned their back, when he might be in jail or imprisoned, when he has bled and sweated for God for so long, and yet he is desperate to call on help because there are none near him who will do it. Many would say, what a failure your life has been, but Paul can say, God has saved me and God will continue to save me. Paul measures his life based upon what he has tried to do for God because of what he knows God has done for him. And so we dedicate Evan's life to God. And we dedicate our lives to God. In doing so, we dedicate our lives to Evan so that he might be raised up in this truth. Let us hope that this church and all the future churches of this little man share with him the eternal love of God, the amazing dedication of God to him and to everyone else, so that in time Evan can choose to live his life in a way that he won't regret. When he looks back, he can say, I lived it as a gift to God, and he can look forward. God has prepared for me a heavenly reward. Listen to a word from God to you this morning.